Hey, this is Jonathan Gilliam. I'm about to start the show. It's Thursday, July 16th, and I want to give you your tasking for the day. After having a conversation yesterday, a lot of people have lost a lot of loved ones over the past couple of months due to the COVID and the incompetency of government and the violence. People are feeling very distraught, and they're doing a lot of mourning, and their faith is being tested. People are losing hope. And I just want to task you for this, okay? Find your faith and hold on to that, because while hope may disappear, the foundation of hope is faith. And if you have the faith of a mustard seed, you will be able to move mountains. That's what the Bible says. And I truly believe that your faith will restore your hope. I've had the experience myself. So remember, when you are in doubt, turn to the Lord, and you will find hope again. And just keep pushing forward. That's your task. If you're feeling down, that is your task. Turn to the Lord. Let's start the show. This is Jonathan Gilliam back on the Experts Podcast. Happy Thursday. Yes, you can be happy in 2020. In fact, 2020 has shown us that happiness definitely comes from inside, because you're most likely not going to get it from exterior or from external sources in this year. What a weird, strange year that we've had, and it's not over. I keep telling everybody, August, I believe the later part of August is going to be one of the meanest, nastiest, and chaotic months we've ever had. And the reason I think that is because it takes about that long for the elections will happen in November, so it's going to take a couple of months for I believe this tactically, this is the way the enemy is going to think, is that they can cause something to happen in August, and that it will cause people to basically turn away from the president and turn away from hope and turn away from their faith. And then when November comes around, I don't think this election can be won by numbers. They tried to get rid of the Electoral College. You see, the Electoral College is the secret not really a secret. It was the checks and balance for the cities and the big populated areas. Now, I don't know if they intended that to be that way, but that's the reality. You have rural areas in this nation where, let's take a state of Arkansas, where I'm from. I think they have 8 million people. I think it's 8 million people in Arkansas, right? Well, there's 8 million people in and around New York City alone. So where people think that it's not fair, that the popular vote is what should be, it's really mainly the left that believes the popular vote should be what determines the president. But see, the reality with that is, there's 8 million people that live in a small area in and around New York City. And in Arkansas, in a whole state, there's 8 million people that live. Should the state of Arkansas and that 8 million people, should the state of their lives be determined by what the 8 million people that live in New York City and the rest of the millions of people that live in the New York State, should Arkansas be determined, their future be determined by them alone? You see, this is where the Electoral College comes into play. It gives an even balance between the cities and the rural areas, and there's a reason why they're more conservative in rural areas. Remember, the truth, the lie is that conservative is on the right and liberal is on the left. That's probably the first time I ever said it that way, but that's the reality. That is a lie. Okay. Liberal or progressive or socialist or globalist or communist, those people are on the far left. They're on the far left spectrum. If you were going to put this on a line, okay, on the right of that line is going to be people who are slow to change, people who are not looking to fix things that aren't broken. That's the right. That's really the basic of what it is on the right. Now, they it gets into details of policy, like the abortion issue, for instance. On the right, they're pro-life. On the left, pro-choice, right? And that is part of that game right there. Because the reality is, conservatism is not determined by a scale of left and right. Conservatism is made up of people who are free thinkers. That's why it's hard to get a lot of conservatives out to rally and to do these things, to stand together, because it's really, conservatism is not dependent upon the masses' consent. Being conservative is really determined by you, your morals, ethics, and values, and an understanding that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But on the left, they truly are dependent upon the collective mind's groupthink. So if we were to take those off of that line that goes left and right, you would have effective and not effective. And quite frankly, there's basically nothing that the left is effective at doing, because their ideology is set up, even though they don't understand it, is set up for a power elite to have control. That's what they lie, and they tell everybody it's not about that. This is, the liberal Democrat Party or progressive Democrats or whatever, socialists. It's about the people, about giving you free education, about giving you free health care. But it's also about taking more of your money. So it's really not free. It's really, you are paying for it. So it is a lie, and it's not effective. Whereas if you look at true conservatism, it's total opposite. It's not really a political thing. See, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Because I don't like politics. I know people think that I'm, he's Republican. I'm not Republican. I vote Republican because out of the two choices, that's where the conservatives lie. Conservatives are never going to follow a liberal or the Democrat party. They're not. So you have to vote Republican. And if I ever ran for something, I'm sure it would be on the Republican ticket, because right now, the way the system the way the system runs is it is controlled by those two political parties. Every seat of government in the United States, every single seat, whether it's city, state, or federal, every sheriff, chief of police, but every sheriff, every elected official, every judge in the Supreme Court, congressmen, senators, they're all somewhat controlled by these two political parties. That's just the way it is. But the reality, and I really want liberals to listen to this, the reality is when I say I'm conservative, and I think this is the majority of people that I know that are conservative, they're not talking about politics, and they're not talking about ideology. They're talking about a way that they look at things and they say, is this even an issue? Is there anything here that needs to be fixed? And if there's not, they don't concern themselves with it. Now, I know liberals will come back and say, well, what about healthcare? Healthcare needs to be fixed. Hey, I agree. I actually agree. And my conservative mindset tells me that healthcare, the problem with healthcare is that it is a business. It's a business for profit. And it's big business, along with pharmaceuticals. And so what happens is that is what corrupts. That is what corrupts healthcare. You get government involved in healthcare, and it's not so much corrupting it. It's already corrupted. It's going to make it 100 times more incompetent. Look at the VA system. Very simple system. You know what's interesting about the VA? All those veterans, if they're still in the military, their health care is just taken care of. It's easy. We're told when to go to the doctor. They stay ahead of the problem because they don't want you to get sick. But the VA doesn't work like that. And the VA is all over the place. I had my knee operated on in the VA, and the doctors were great. The staff that operated on me were incredible. It's the bureaucracy that makes anything that the government's involved with incompetent. So where am I going with this? Well, that's a good question, because I didn't start off to talk about this, but it's something that just kind of flowed out. And it is, I think, a good example, the Electoral College, on the checks and balances, the way that the Founding Fathers intended them to be. It actually works. The checks and balances in Washington, D.C. do not work anymore because there's two political parties. You know, it doesn't matter if you're a senator, a congressman, a Supreme Court justice, or president of the United States. I think present company excluded from that one in the as far as President Trump goes, because he doesn't play by their rules. But there is no checks and balance. They were supposed to check each other, and they don't, because they all work together according to their political ideology or political party. And that's politicians. That's why we, the people, whether you consider yourself liberal or conservative, as a civilian, a lot of the things they do doesn't make sense, because they're not in it for the right reasons. They're not in it to make to make things better in this country. The Democrat Party is there to, in effect, get socialism and ultimately communism into the governing body of the United States. And the Republican Party is just full of people who play politics like people who play football. I don't think a lot of these people have an ideological bend. They're just part of the winning team, and they make millions of dollars that way. That's the way I look at it. They really don't have effective solutions to anything most of the time. So what I was going to get at, though, is that as in August, and I believe late August, things are going to get very chaotic, because ultimately, here's the dangerous thing about voting, okay? If you can make enough people pissed off at the country, they won't go to the polls. And what happens in and around like New York City, for instance, where AOC is elected by 18,000 people. That's right. 18,000 people put that loudmouth into the Congress, and she's caused the entire United States massive amounts of trouble. Cost literally tens of thousands of people their jobs in New York, where she represents, because she was all over Amazon, and Amazon pulled out of the city. They were going to build there, and they didn't, and give people jobs, and they didn't. So if enough people are pissed off at the government, they just won't go vote. And what would end up happening is you'll have a greater reduced number of people voting. And ultimately, that, I think, is the tactic of the left, is to just get people not to go vote. And so they can then win a lot of these things. Also turn a lot of these electorates that actually vote, take your vote, and then base their vote upon it. I think that August is the perfect time, because if they do something that is effective, it'll give them about 2 months for that to stew. And you see how fast 2 months goes by, and then November happens, and people will vote with their emotions, not with their minds about what's effective and who's effective. There's only one choice. I mean, we all know that. There's only one choice. It's President Trump to get reelected. Anything else, first of all, there's nobody else can do the job that he does. There's just not. And I supported him before he was even president, when I was hosting Sean Hannity's radio show back in 2015, actually. There's nobody that can do that job right now, because the media is so corrupt. Really, it comes down to media and politicians. They are so corrupt. And also, the blind people in this country are so vicious that they have somehow, and I'm sure it's more structured than anybody realizes except for them, they have somehow been able to induce fear in companies and businesses and people to the point where if you say something that they don't like, you will lose your job, or you will get death threats, or your social media will just be crushed because there's so many of them jumping on board that you won't ever be able to say anything. They just get, unless you just don't care about that, which the president's kind of like that. He has thick skin. He just doesn't really care. But the problem also on Twitter, for instance, I get people try to hack my account all the time. I get people all the time trying to reset my password. I get notifications for that. I get people complaining on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram about posts that I made that are my opinion. And they say, like, I did the speech the other day where I said that we're on the verge of civil war, and the left started it and we're going to finish it. Well, that video on Twitter, somebody complained and said it was threatening. So they were saying they were going to pull it down. Facebook, I put up a picture of Aunt Jemima and telling the story about Aunt Jemima, the lady who actually was, for a while, the model for Aunt Jemima pancake products. And I saw somebody post this, and I went to 2 different locations to research it, and they both said that she was a millionaire when she retired, and she was a big philanthropist. And then after I posted it, and after all the liberals, for some reason, they just could not handle anybody. Look, if it wasn't true, why is it such a big deal to liberals that the world does not see her as a success? I find that very telling. So bad that somebody complained on Facebook, and then they had these liberal fact checkers, and they said that it was partially untrue. And now Facebook is threatening to pull and unpublish my Facebook page. I don't know if it's both of them, because I have a personal one as well, or if it's just a public one. But that's how ridiculous, how vicious the left is. And so this system has been able to grow to a point where it is so unified that they threaten people's jobs, get people fired, threaten people's lives, to try to destroy them on social media. We have politicians that are on the left, and they're just like, I'm going to play this clip from de Blasio in a minute. They're just completely destroying the morale and the ability of law enforcement to protect the people and to enforce the laws that we have on the books. And they're bankrupting the cities and the states, and they're just destroying everything and killing people. 5, as I said over and over again, 5 governors are responsible for over 50,000 deaths of elderly people because they put COVID patients into the elderly clinics, where these people are the most susceptible to this virus. It's very structured in what I'm seeing. Now, right along with that, as I've pointed out over and over again, they will lie at the drop of a hat. It does not bother them to lie. The other day, they had, I'm pulling up my Twitter. That's what that noise is. Here, I'll do it again. There you go. Maybe I should do that when I come up with an idea. So the other day, President Trump gave a press conference and Joe Biden gave a press conference. Joe Biden was completely out of it. He was slurring his words. He was just incompetent. But the media didn't report that. See, that was the fact. What they do is counter intel 101. They make counter accusations and they accuse the other side of what they're guilty of. So Joe Biden was all out of it. They accused in the media the president of being out of it. And then we're talking about how his hair is gray now instead of gold. That was the big thing. They're going to insult him on anything they can get. Now, I want you to hear, let me pull this up because, gosh, this relationship between police and community. This is Bill de Blasio, a.k.a. Warren Wilhelm Jr. That's his real name. Why do you feel the need to change your name if you're a politician? I mean, you're one of the people. That's very odd, I think. Obama did the same thing. Several people on the left have changed their names. I don't know about the right, but I haven't heard of anybody on the right. I'm not saying they haven't. I find it strange that they changed. Why would you need to change your name? I mean, these people, I don't know if you realize this, these people have lived, it's like I was a government employee for over 20 years, right? I got paid by the government. But it wasn't an extravagant lifestyle that I had. These people lived the life of big time money makers on Wall Street. And they're making that money from you, the taxpayer. And then they do stupid stuff like this. Now, if you've been watching the news, you'll see how New York is out of control. Crime is up. Shootings are up over 200%. Massive amounts of people have been killed, including children. They found a guy yesterday completely chopped up and in plastic bags in his Lower East Side apartment. Somebody's been going around attacking children and elderly people, and then other people have been going through Manhattan shooting, just randomly shooting. You're not hearing any of this stuff reported. I mean, very, very little hints of it here and there. But when I listened to this clip of de Blasio that I'm about to play for you, this was from June, early to mid-June is when this soundbite comes from. This is before they started working to defund, quote unquote, defund the police. Or it was right around that time, right when it started. And he's talking about not needing the National Guard, which he was begging for the National Guard when the coronavirus first sparked up in March. He was insulting Trump left and right because Trump didn't deploy the National Guard the way he wanted it. So listen to this soundbite.
We do not need, nor do we think it's wise for the National Guard to be in New York City.
Well, we know that's not. We know that they actually do need them now. Okay, we know that, and you could have seen it with a 10-foot pole. I left in April. I left Manhattan after 15 years because I saw what was coming. I just got out. If I could see that, I'm sure his advisors could see it, but he doesn't. Well, maybe. I mean, good advisors. I shouldn't say his. I mean, good advisors.
Nor any armed forces. I'm going to tell you why. This is really important we have this out right now. If someone needs a history lesson. When outside armed forces go into communities, no good comes of it.
Now, that's not completely true. If they had deployed the National Guard when these riots were occurring, before the riots were occurring, those riots would have been stopped and all those businesses would still be there. Somebody sent me a video the other day of a guy driving down Fifth Avenue in Manhattan. Every single store was boarded up. The entire, I don't know how many blocks he drove, like 30 blocks. Every business was boarded up. Some cases they had razor wire up where so people couldn't crawl in, with the exception of one of the most guarded places in New York City now, which is the Trump Tower. And Gucci is in Trump Tower. It's still there. So the National Guard actually does do some good. They do a lot of good when they show up. People aren't going to go against them like they would the police.
We've seen this for decades. Go back to the 50s, 60s with the civil rights movement on through all the way up to today. People who are not trained for the conditions of New York City, they're public servants. They protect us in a different way.
This guy's such an idiot. He doesn't even realize that, a large number of National Guard soldiers are police officers in their regular job. And there's nothing unique about New York. I mean, there's some things unique about New York, I guess, when I was an FBI agent here, as far as like the size and the density of it, the reality of what crimes actually occur here. Yeah, that stuff's all real. But you're going to see manifestations of that anywhere where there's law enforcement and there's crime. And these people actually are exactly what you would need to back up the police. But this guy's an idiot. He doesn't know that. He's a communist. His parents were communists.
Appreciate them deeply, but they're not trained for the circumstance here. They have not been spending decades working on the relationship between police and community, particularly in the intensive way it's been worked on in recent years.
Yeah, we can see how that's worked out. Recent years. Somehow, listen, New York City, New York in general, what are you thinking hiring these people? This guy and Cuomo he is more of a mobster, a psych. I don't even think he is narcissist, but I think he's part psychopath as well. And he rules the city and the state like a mobster. People don't do what he wants. It's not like he can fire them. He just makes their lives miserable, or he doesn't fund their projects. He's a dirtbag. De Blasio, what were you thinking, New York City? What were you thinking? This is all on you. He's an idiot, but the biggest idiot are the people who reelected this clown. That is unbelievable somebody that is this incompetent could be reelected. How?
Officer out there, and some of them are imperfect because we're all human beings, but the vast majority are doing their job, doing it well, doing it with restraint because they've been trained incessantly.
No, they're doing it with restraint, you idiot, because you have restrained them to the point where they can't even do the job. That's the truth. That's where the restraint comes from. They're taught standard operating procedures. That's what it's called, you moron. But he doesn't even know that because he's not fit for this job. He couldn't even make it in Antifa. That's how stupid this idiot is.
To act with restraint. A National Guard, a member of the Guard called up from any part of this state, doesn't have that particular training, doesn't know our environment.
It's called standard operating procedures. You tell your guardsmen, don't do a chokehold. They won't do a chokehold. You tell them, you let the law enforcement officers initiate the arrest. They'll let them do that, and then they'll back them up as force multipliers. It's called standard operating procedures. This is why the city and cities around the nation are the way that they are. Because people don't make educated decisions when they vote, or they just don't vote. I don't think most people realize what this is all about and how fast this can take over. These people are dangerous, like de Blasio.
Is carrying a loaded weapon. That is a bad scenario. So far, thank God we have not had a loss of life in these last 5 days.
I don't know what 5 days he's talking about, because every day somebody's dying here now. And I think it was during might have been during the riots. And he's saying that, the National Guard is going to come out with guns as though they're just bumbling idiots that don't get any training. They get the same amount of training as law enforcement. That's the truth. Probably more than most law enforcement.
But you bring outside armed forces into an equation that they are not trained for, people who could be very, very unnerved by the dynamics that our police officers have learned to work with and deal with. That is a dangerous scenario.
He's such an idiot. Such an idiot. One of the most effective things that Rudy Giuliani did when he was the mayor of New York City was the thing called broken glass laws, where, you're going to get in trouble. If you break a law, you're going to get in trouble. And then also they were putting officers on every block in areas where they were bad. They would put police officers on every block, so that literally there was a cop every 50 yards. And then they would push the crime out, and also by changing policy. This guy doesn't realize that if National Guard was there and they were able to be force multipliers, they may not even be needed in the areas where the riots are happening. They may be able to go over and patrol an area where there's less crime, so they can remove the cops from there and put them where it's bad. This guy doesn't even understand that. Well, maybe he does. He just doesn't care. I don't think he understands it, but I think he's a communist. He wants this chaos. Remember, they want chaos. They think out of chaos that this thing will happen, this synthesis, and that the people who need to stay will be there, and the rest of the people will just be cut away. That's what they believe. And then they'll all live in some kind of weirdo Antifa pink hat reality, probably arguing with each other. That's what they love to do.
Put down the marker. The National Guard should not be brought here. We have 36,000 police officers.
And that's not true. See, a lot of those officers are schools officers. A lot of them, the ticket takers, or not ticket takers, but the traffic people who give you the ticket violations, parking tickets, and so on and so forth. These people are not trained. They don't go through an academy, right? They just give tickets out. They get very little training. They are now counted as NYPD officers, and they're by the thousands in this city. So you see, they're not just talking. When he says 36, I had to learn this as an FBI agent. It's not like if something goes wrong, they can call upon 36,000 police. That's not going to happen, because a lot of these people are not qualified police officers.
They are the best equipped to deal with this situation.
Yeah, not really.
And you know what will help them deal with the situation? Not the National Guard.
Oh, here's the big line.
The people of New York City are much more powerful than anything the National Guard could do.
You know what? The people of New York City that he's talking about, those are the leftists in New York City. And those really, quite frankly, are the most dangerous people. But the people who are hardworking in New York City, even the liberals, they're not going to come out and do jack squat. It's not like they're going to go out and make citizens arrests or push people back. This guy is such an idiot. It is unbelievable how bad he is. Now, let's take a break real quick, and I'm going to tell you about another idiot, and then I'm going to close the show out because I got a lot of stuff to do today. And I think this pretty much covers what I needed to. But let's take a break. We'll be right back. I know I talk a lot about my books on this show, but I just want to make sure that if you have not checked out Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and it's 2 workbooks that go with it, that you at least go check it out. You can go on and listen to the first, 2 minutes of it on Amazon if you just click on listen here, and you can at least hear what I'm saying. The important thing that you have to take away from this is that this book, like no other, is going to show you how attackers look at you and teach you how to look at yourself the same way, how to divide your life into sectors, how to target each sector with that knowledge and understanding, those tactics, techniques, and procedures. And then the workbooks allow you to do your own threat assessment on every aspect of your life, and then take that information and put it into the defense assessment workbook. Now, along with that, I designed, along with Danielle Kreiner, a children's book called The Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children. And it's a book of pictures that you can give your child, and in the pictures are embedded security, safety, awareness, and communication lessons. And the parent, you can go to teamlittlebigs.com and download the lesson plans. So what you literally have is a way to teach your child non-verbally. They can sit there and look at the books, and you can point to those pictures and really start them off at a very, very young age, helping them to understand what they should do, what they shouldn't do, and how to communicate these things. Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival was written for, I would say, people 10 years and up. Definitely for an adult to understand the world that they live in. And The Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children, was written with those children in mind, so we can start them out young to understand what they need to do to stay safe and how to communicate these things. Trust me, folks, I did this for you, and I hope that you'll go check them out, because this is how you secure your homeland. The Adventures of Team Little Bigs and Sheep No More. Go get them. And let's get back to the show. All right, I got one more little soundbite here that I want to play for you. And I got to pull it up here, and it's of another person that I have no love lost for whatsoever. Let me refresh this real quick. Okay, here it is. I found it. This is Lindsey Graham. Okay, the guy who was scared like a little puppy when John McCain was alive. I don't know what John McCain had over on him, but he was scared like a little puppy. Now he comes out and he makes these promises day after day after day of things that he wants to do, but he doesn't do nothing gets done up there. Now, I do give a lot of individual congressmen grief and congresswomen, but I really don't know if there's a lot that they can do because of the powers that be up there. But Lindsey Graham, he's a senator, and it's the same thing in the Senate, but he's been there forever, and they don't do anything, so I don't trust any of them. Let's listen to him.
It's the most expensive money he'll ever receive. What we're going to do is let people in South Carolina know where the $13.9 million is coming from. And what is it about Jamie Harrison that all these people like? I think we'll put the puzzle together here soon. But let me tell you what's coming up from the Judiciary Committee. You have followed this more than anybody probably in the country. Remember, the Horowitz report indicated that an intel analyst and a case agent interviewed the Russian subsource in January for 3 days and again in March, and they actually produced a memo of about 40 pages detailing how unreliable the dossier was. You also have to remember that they renewed the warrant
Get to it,
April
Lindsay.
and
Jeez.
June of 2017. Here's what I'm here to tell you. I want that memo out to the public so they can read it for themselves. I think.
Wow, that's impressive. You know what he reminds me of, Lindsey Graham? Whenever you hear him being interviewed, you know these videos that you'll see online, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or something, where it's a commercial, and like they have this one guy, he always has his shirt off, you know, he's all muscled up, and he says, you know, you got these foods that are really bad for your testosterone, and you really, if you want to get big, it's not just about taking a testosterone supplement, it's about getting rid of these 5 foods. Now I'm going to tell you about these 5 foods in just a minute, but first I want to talk about this. And then you watch it, and then you're like 10 minutes into it, and he's still saying, but I'm going to tell you about this in just a few minutes, but I'm just about to get to it, but let me talk about this first. That's Lindsey Graham. It's like a mattress salesperson. They never actually really do, they don't bring anything out worth anything, and it's high pressure sales, and it's just about getting you to pay attention so they can wave a flag and then sell you nothing is basically what that's all about. Snake oil salesman. Let's see what else big thing he has to say here.
Days away from having it declassified, not weeks. And here's my point. Anybody that read that memo or was briefed about the memo and continued to use the dossier to get a warrant against Carter Page in April and June of 2017, they're in big time trouble.
That's
yeah, right.
Well, but they also won
I don't,
before
you know,
the first one.
I don't believe any of these people are in trouble. Lindsey Graham is the worst about pumping this stuff up and making it sound like there's some stuff that really it's going to come down. There's a plan, a mighty plan. There is no plan. There's no plan. This stuff is going to just go away, especially if Trump does not win in November. Every bit of this stuff is going to go away. The Clintons will never go to jail. Comey may, but I don't know. McCabe, no way. All these people are just going to be sidetracked. And it's unbelievable what happened, because we would be in jail if it was you and I. I know that for a fact. So I think I'm going to cut the show there. A little short today, but I think we've got a lot in. And the main thing that I want you to focus on is the fact that there's a whole process of government and the way it works, whether it's electoral college and how important that is to the rural areas. It gives them an equal footing against the cities where massive amounts of people live, or the National Guard and what they're used for when they're called out, and the reality and how they're trained. You should try your hardest to educate yourself on this stuff, so that when you hear these politicians and these media personalities lie to you, you'll actually understand what the lie is. If you don't do that, then you're going to be gullible to what their truth is, which is not the truth at all. So make sure you educate yourself, because you are who the founding fathers intended to save this country. I'm Jonathan Gilliam. This is The Experts. The truth has arrived. Peace, and we're out of here.